Alrighty, we are live. Welcome back to Colin's Corner, and today we will be discussing Fool's Fate, the third and final book in the Tawny Man trilogy. And with me, as usual, for our Realm of the Elderlings journey, I have Ben from Books with Benghis Kahn. So, Ben, you want to do a little introduction of yourself for those that may not know you yet?
Oh, sure. Well, you already did a great introduction. But yep, Books with Benghis Khan is the channel. A little hard to find, but you could try to search for it or click through a link. But yeah, I have been loving my buddy read journey with Colin through Live Ship, Traders, and the Tawny Men trilogy. In a non-spoiler fashion, I guess to start, are we 6 for 6, Colin? Are we 6 for 6?
100%. This one, this one's been my favorite yet. Of like, we'll get into that, but I mean, what are your just real quick? I mean, I don't think there's going to be too many people in here.
Hey,
Um,
Derry.
Hi, Derry. Yes, Derry's been waiting. She's a champion,
Oh,
but there's not going to be.
sorry if it's late. Sorry if it's late for you over there.
Yeah.
Hi, Chadia.
Well, yes, Chaudy is here. Um,
Oh
quick,
no, this
quick,
yeah.
quick overall thoughts. What are your quick overall thoughts?
Oh, amazing, spectacular finale. Just the classic Tawny Man. What is now to me the classic Tawny Man beginning act. Like all the first halves of these books. Well, maybe a little less in some cases are just so deliberately and slowly paced, and I love them to death. Like they're just doing so much awesome character work and kind of slow burn plot building to build up to the later quicker pace sections, and just loved that slower beginning, even though after the end of Golden Flow I was like, okay, we're starting a new quest, like things are probably going to pick up immediately, and then it was like, no, we're staying pretty low key for a while. And it was still great. Like I was just all in on that slowish beginning as I know the crazy stuff is coming. I'm like, okay, let me just sit with these characters in a little bit more of a cozy fantasy series for a little while longer until all crap hits the fan. And then when it did, that was one of the most spectacular, like, climactic sections and falling action sections to any book and series I've read. So yeah, amazing from start to finish, and a fantastic just series finale for a great series. Like I couldn't have asked for anything more. Just felt unpredictable around every curve, but what ended up happening felt now in retrospect just completely inevitable. I love it when that's the case.
Yeah, I have. It's funny. I went to the Penguin season opener last night, and I have a buddy that isn't involved in BookTube or anything like that that is actively reading through the series with me, and there seems to be this trend of in Farseer, Assassin's Quest was my favorite, and Live Ship of Destiny was my favorite, and in this one, Fool's Fate has I've said it already in a couple of discords, albeit I know there's a lot of recency bias going on here, but this is like the first book I've ever read that I can say like without any reservation is my favorite book I think I've ever read.
Yes.
Ever like just from start to
Let's
finish,
go.
I just I was so amazed at the level of just not missing the whole entire book.
Yeah.
Hobb
Yeah.
just did not miss. I was like,
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
and like you said, even like the ending, the inevitable but like just perfect ending. Like I
Oh my
will get
god,
into
yeah.
all of it, but I cried like
Perfect, yeah.
4 or 5 times reading this book. Like everyone said I would. It was just amazing. Like there was so many things happened that I wanted to happen. So many things happened that I really didn't want to happen, but that were
Yeah.
just the right thing.
Yep, yep. Oh, yes. Oh my god, I
So
love it. I love it. And you're earlier on in your fantasy journey with modern fantasy, or just all fantasy, than I am. And so I think it makes sense that things you read now that are amazing would make this deep of an impression, because I I have so many favorites already over the past like 6 years of getting back into modern fantasy and science fiction, that it's tough for me to, even if I love something now, to for it to unseat some of my early favorites, because of the specialness of coming to those like early on. Um, so I love that you get this one pretty early on, and it can, this whole series, and can be can be so special for you. But it is great for me honestly. But I didn't find myself as emotionally invested in this as you did. I don't think I was. Maybe part of that is the time between me reading this and Farseer has been a bunch of years, and uh, I connected to, I think, just the live ship plotting and characters overall more than things in this series. So I think I was getting more emotional in live ship, but we're splitting hairs here because this was still amazing. This got me more emotional with the Fitz storyline and these characters than any other previous Fitz book has. So this culminated in a way where it's like, okay, I think Hop is finally brought me in fully, with just no reservations on these Fitz books now. So yeah, I think this one got me in fully to the Fitz books. So yeah, this one, yeah, I'm with you. Perfect book, ending amazing. Um, and I got thinking about just like trying to rank the books in the trilogy, because everyone loves to do stuff like that. And I know Jake Bishop, has Fool's Fate and uh, Fool's Errand is two of his favorite books of all time. So Golden Fool has to be like the lowest ranked book of the trilogy by default. But I was thinking about how like a trilogy like this, where it's very much one story in 3 volumes, and it just really builds on itself throughout, and the books aren't so separate really. Like all of the books are just as essential as each other. Like we can't have this book and this amazing finale without all of the building that we did in Golden Fool. So like you can't separate
Right.
the books from each other. Like they're all connected, so and so intertwined that uh, every book was serving its essential purpose for this overall story. And I probably more just view these types of really tight connected trilogies or series as just kind of one thing, and it's hard to even break them up and rank them. Uh, I just view it as, oh, this whole Tawny Man trilogy was amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we have some not Fool's favorite being not their favorites. We have a lot of Fools. We've got Chaudia loving Fool's Errand, which I totally understand. Um, and
yeah, Fool's
I
Errand does
think
something because of a time jump that like only a long like fantasy series could do something like that and have that effect and emotional impact, and the type of beginning of that book. Like if that was a book one of a whole series, I don't think it would have nearly the effect that Fool's Errand does have, being like a book 4 or 7, whatever it is. But but yeah, it does something very special there that only like the start of a sequel series could do.
yeah, and I think to Derry's point here, I can't even like I tried my hardest to imagine reading this book without the knowledge of even the title of the last
Yeah.
trilogy in this series. Like if this was the end, it was already emotionally impactful and like just wrecked me. But like if I really at the time this came out believed that this was just it, I don't know how I would have felt, because I don't think it could have ended any other way than it did, personally.
Yeah,
And you're right. I
Derry got to experience the end of the series twice. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's
Thinking it's the end of the series twice. Although there's going to be more stuff apparently, so who knows? Maybe there'll be a third ending or more.
that would be really cool. So you've always liked Fitz, right?
Yeah, I've always liked Fitz, but I do think this book brought me to the point of possibly love. So I do
Okay.
think there was this book might have turned me. I still have been like having my continual frustrations with him, and then we'll get into the spoiler stuff, but there was something that happened in this book where I'm like, oh man, I have a new understanding of Fitz, and appreciation for the everything he's been through, and the character arc, and uh, yeah, we'll get into that in the spoiler section. But um,
Yeah, this is I was
oh
pretty
yeah,
content.
yeah, I'm both. I'm both. I'm like I'm happy and content with where it left me. I could go for a long break, but I'm so into it that I'm also ready to jump back in and see where it goes next too. So I feel kind of both ways.
I think that this my buddy asked me last night too, so I was like in my notes ranking the 9 books that I've read so far, in Realm of the Elderlings, which is extremely hard and could change tomorrow, except for like I think a few of them. But I think this is what it comes down to. Like, if anybody told me that like Royal Assassin, which I know is a lot of people's favorite, um, Golden Fool, not Golden Fool's Errand, like I totally could understand different books being people's favorites in this series because what Hobb is able to do, I guess still before we get into spoilers, but the realness of her characters and her relationships that she develops and past experiences and traumas that different characters go through and decisions that different characters have to make and parental figures different like she covers such a wide gambit of life experience in her books that I can totally see how different books would impact different people emotionally. And I'm a sucker for the way things get wrapped up. Obviously there's a trend if the third book in the first 3 trilogies is my favorite of each trilogy.
Yeah.
But there was so many things in this book that and then they're not all things that I wanted to happen. Some of them were horrible and horrible but inevitable, but they struck just she just continued striking emotional chords with me throughout the entirety of this book. And I think that we're probably going to be talking about the same moment where Fitz just I just the moment I was just like,
Yeah.
Oh, Fitz, come on, man." Like I get it now. Like, wow, how did I not, And so I don't know. Without anything further, you wanna take this into spoiler territory?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're gonna be dancing around stuff and probably laying out spoilers anyway. Let's do
Yeah.
spoilers, but we
Um.
could chat about that for a moment because my mind is there. But so spoilers for
Yes.
uh
Spoilers, spoilers,
all Realm of the
spoilers.
Elderlings books through Fool's Fate. So
Do a little spoilers thing here.
I've been just
Um.
I know we've been reminded a couple times that Fitz put some of his like memories and past like into the stone dragon. And so like intellectually I've known that like Fitz doesn't have his full like past and self with him since then, but like it still felt like mostly Fitz that I kind of ignored that. But then when Fitz gets all of his past memories back and he's basically his complete self again, like it was amazing to see how he felt different, and then just being in his point of view, like how everything felt different. And Hobb had been probably very deliberately writing Fitz as this incomplete person for the last 3 books, who was like missing some of his self and some of his like zest for life and fulfillment, and was just a little bit emptier. And it was such a relief. I felt like, oh my god, I could finally breathe with you, Fitz. Like you're your whole self again. And it was so beautiful that was because he was getting back painful memories. Like the theme here that Hab was working with, or just the wisdom or the messages that like we are everything that's happened to us, and that we've experienced, and including the painful things that are essential and that are part of our whole vivid life experiences, that they all make us up and they're essential parts of us. Like, that is such a beautiful message, and to see that play out through Fitz in a way that it could only be done in a fantasy novel, um, was just spectacular stuff.
Yeah, I think, Derry's kind of striking close to, the same themes that you're touching on, and I'm similar to you. Like, this was a thing that I knew happened. Like, we read it. Um, it's almost like the the most interesting thing about all this that like became very apparent to me was that I think that the Fool and maybe Arity and a couple of people that were there when this happened were the only people that really understood quite what Fitz was doing
Hmm.
by doing this. Because I remember Verity being very adamant about Fitz and the Fool, like, stop doing this. You don't really know what you're doing. And the moment that the Fool gives this back to Fitz is like, it makes so much sense why Fitz doesn't make sense. Throughout the entirety of the series up to this point, we get all these different moments and situations where Fitz is making decisions that seem extremely frustrating. And I think that the people in his life that surround him know, they don't know why, but they have this notion that he's not, there's something wrong, like, and the amazing thing is that everybody gives him his space um to be in this hut, before he gets back into to court life. And um it makes sense why Fitz, like, he didn't have these memories to grow and change from. Like, it's
Hmm.
like his path was diverted into a path that didn't make sense because he didn't have these memories of things that happened to him that would have changed him and made him probably do things that made more sense. It was just really like, it was a moment where everything kind of clicked. I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. These are like life altering events that should change you forever, that he just shoved into a dragon and we're no longer a part of him.
Yeah.
So, am I
Great point.
lagging?
Great point, Derry. Oh no, that was just a little tiny leg. Oh,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't happening consistently. So,
yeah. Kennett was partially forged. Yeah, man. Oh, thanks, Derry.
yeah.
Like, the parts of this book that were even like kind of unrelated to the larger political and adventure plot were just so touching. Like Fitz just having that greater appreciation for life and those around him, the beauty of life and of emotionally tough experiences, and or just the beauty of joyous moments that are just for fun, like him and Thick sledding, and him
That was yeah.
him realizing like, oh, I've been for years have just been doing things that have just been necessary, not things that are unnecessary but could bring me joy. And like Thick just unreservedly enjoying the sledding and bringing Fitz into that, and Fitz loving it. Like, what a beautiful, beautiful moment. Oh yeah, another beautiful moment there. Darius mentioned Nettle fixing Thick's dream, just bringing him into that giant bed in the wagon and telling
Yeah.
Thick like, "I love you," and it's just exactly what Thick needed to feel safe and comforted. Yeah.
Well, before we get too jumping around, I think let's try to maybe follow some kind of
Yeah, yeah.
chronological order
Let's
here.
do
So
it. Let's
we
do
get
it.
I think, there's a Hobb has done this wonderful job of things being circular, um, and coming back. And So we get obviously Fitz returning to Buckkeep. There's all these things that feel inevitable and that happen kind of throughout the series, but Hobb is still able to write it in a way that makes my heart happy or hurt in some way. But Fitz is skill master. He gets
Yeah.
talked into being skill master. And this is like a position that like I never really thought Fitz would have, but kind of felt inevitable after it happened. I was like, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I think
Yeah.
Chade knew that. I think Katrikin wanted Fitz back in court in some way, shape, or form, but I think Chade kind of knew that Dutiful needed this and that there was actually a person built for the job and that it was Fitz. So I think Chade, has been kind of planning this for years. And I love the I love watching the scenes of the coterie growing closer and figuring out like, you know, Fitz seems to know where everybody's kind of skill level is, their talent with it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
He's well aware that he's not the most skilled skill user. But then we see all these other relationships developing through the skill, which I think is really a unique way to do character development. Um,
Oh yeah.
we see like Dutiful and Thick become extremely close, largely through the skill. And we briefly talked about Thick and Nettle, um, you know, growing together, and we see Fitz and Nettle, even though they don't know each other, kind of like there's just so many cool things happening throughout this entire book, and a lot of it happens through the skill, which I
Oh
thought
yeah.
was really
Yeah.
really interesting to to not even be like remotely close to each other, and these characters' relationships are just developing through this mental like telepathy
Yeah.
almost. That it was
Yeah.
bizarre, but
That was
so
a continual
entertaining.
continual joy of seeing Fitz interact with Nettle and just the thorny nature of that, because Fitz needing to like hide his true identity, but like also Nettle automatically like envisions him as this like wolf man, so she doesn't even really know what he's like. And yeah, I loved that their relationship kind of developed through those skill dreams, really is. uh and you're right, like that whole coterie stuff was great. Was it in the beginning of this book? Did Fitz is also in charge of training Swift, right?
I don't think that I think that happens during
Where he's
this
like,
book, but I might be
where
wrong.
he's like, was that at the beginning of this book? Uh,
So much happened.
maybe Derek can help us, but uh, where he's training Swift in like fighting, and he's kind of like taking care of Birch's kid in a very
Yeah.
nice kind of reversal. Um, but then he gets very angry when he realizes Swift does not give him permission to leave, and he sends Swift back home. Uh, in a decision that I was not the biggest fan of. That like Swift and Birch were obviously like just not living well together, and Swift was able to like really discover his wit and realize it wasn't the worst thing in the world at Buckkeep and being around Webb. And it's like this is a great place for Swift to come into his own. And then Fitz is like, no, you have to go back. And that I yeah, don't know that I think that was the right decision from Fitz, but I understand it because he's just like, oh no, this is not the honorable thing that you did. You did not get permission to leave. Like you're not an adult yet. You have to go back home. Like it makes sense, but I was not the biggest fan of that decision. But
Yeah.
then Swift didn't go home. He was like, he's just got attached to Webb, and I think that was the best choice for Swift, honestly, to have a mentor who actually understood him. and wasn't so just prejudiced against like the magic and who he was in a way that I think was damaging. And even if Birch loved Swift, he was damaging his son by trying to raise him to repress his self and the wit. But
Yeah.
which made their kind of like reconciliation towards the end so beautiful. It's like, oh, when Swift was in danger, Birch is protecting him, and then Birch is, hurt, and Swift is there, loving his father. Like that was great at the end that they could just have this peaceful reconciliation. But um, yeah, it's understandable. That's what Hobb does so well. Like everyone's psychology and motivations are so understandable. You're easily able to be perspective taking, empathize with them and where they're coming from, and appreciate why they believe things or do things, even if they are frustrating or that you would do something differently or act differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and it's we see a lot of I think in this book specifically, because we don't get to see uh a ton of Fitz raising Hap um in the we're kind of there, and the raising of Hap has already happened. But I think in Fool's Fate, we get to see a lot of how Burrich influenced Fitz in the way that he is treating the young people around him. It's very Burrich like.
Yeah.
And like, even to speak back to what you were saying about Swift, I think Swift is in this young, very confident, like, mindset where he's kind of not been maybe affected by the world too heavily yet. I mean, yeah, he got, you know, kicked out of his house by his father, but he's kind of like, well, I'm safe here to be who I am. And I think Burrich knows, and Fitz even is maybe not as strict as Burrich, but he realizes that just because Ketrican is, saying not to persecute the witted doesn't mean that people won't persecute the witted. Like, yes, you're probably safe at Buck Keep, but that doesn't mean that people aren't going to give
Yeah.
you trouble and potentially hurt you because of who you are, what you have, and he is not shy about it either. Like, he's not even trying to hide it. He's just like, I am witted, and the queen says that's okay. And it's just a little, like, he's like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like, someone's gonna be like, dude, just shut up,
Yeah,
Um,
no, he doesn't. You're right. It's good to be taught caution for things that could put you in danger if you're open about them. Yeah. No, that
and I
Birch
think
was
that's where
yeah,
Birch was coming from the whole
yeah,
time, because this is even before, uh, you know, being witted was trying to be, the notion of being witted was trying to be changed to being just not a bad thing, just something that people are. And so I think that was another good relationship that we get to see build through, I don't know, just kind of we get to see Fitz giving back to somebody that he thought he might never get to, like, see again, not because of actual circumstances at the time, but Fitz was making a decision just not to see all these people in his life again. So he had, like, written it off. I'll never see Birch again, but I can at least do this for him,
yeah.
which I think was
I
really cool.
indeed. I'm wondering if Webb is such an interesting, weird character here. Like I've always wondered if something was like hidden beneath the surface with him, or if like he's hiding something. But like I'm starting to wonder if Webb is just like a Robin Hobb kind of stand-in. It's like, oh, let me insert myself in here and drop some wisdom and like like bring a little peace to the realm and like help everyone grow a little bit. Like when I'm just looking at this page where they were getting ready to set off on the ship together, like and Fitz was like, Swift shouldn't be here, he should go back home. I gave him family my word. And Webb said, I suppose this may be a long voyage for both of you. I'll leave you to each other's company and hope you both learn to make the best of it. I believe you each have something to offer the other, but you'll only value it if you discover it for yourselves. Oh man,
It's just so
Web
subtle.
Webb's just dropping wisdom bombs, and he's like caught in the middle of this conflict between Fitz and Swift, and he's like, you guys got to work through it, but I also know I gotta mentor this young man the way that I think will be best for him. Uh, Man, it's just really interesting stuff and characters and character dynamics that I don't often see in books. Yeah, but this
Yeah.
this journey, like, it starts off pretty slowly because they even get going on the journey, and like they don't get to their destination very quickly. We spend a lot of time kind of on the ship, and a lot of that is just like Thick being thick
Yes.
and causing like everyone else to feel psychologically unwell, and the sailors might mutiny, and uh, everyone's complaining about Thick, and Fitz becomes like the nurse to Thick, and everyone's just miserable, and it's like it wasn't the most pleasant or fun chapters to read, but it was just like classic Hobbits. Like, oh, we can't just have like an uneventful, quick journey somewhere. Like something's got to go wrong, and it also felt pretty essential to the plot overall that like why Fitz as this guardsman could be basically like with Thick throughout the journey and with Dutiful, and then keep, putting Thick like in the right place for later where it's so important when that Thick just didn't leave with everyone on the ship. So like it all was part of the grand master plan. Um, I can imagine though why some people might not love like some of that at the beginning of this book or the journey part where it takes a while to get just to the out islands, and then we're going to the out islands councils, and we're going to the first what's his face her father's island, um Lania's father's
Oh,
island.
yeah.
Oh my
What's
god,
his
what's his
name?
name? Get his name. And then we go to Lania's home island, and it's not too eventful, but it feels like we're learning about the culture of these out islands. We're seeing the politics and understanding like what's at stake here, and all of that felt really essential. But it was also just like giving everything time to breathe. Like seeing Dutiful and Melania grow closer was really cool in this section. Um, Fitz really like staying close to Thick and trying to help him through his seasickness, and uh, just yeah, it was not like the most fun or propulsive section, but it all felt really important and meaningful all the same, and certainly important for what happened later. But I can understand if people felt like it took a little while, it took a little long to get where we were going on this quest. But I was actually there for all of it and didn't get bored really at any point.
Yeah, I think like you said, it was necessary. There was a lot of subtle character building that was going on throughout this part of it, and I think it was super important. I mean, we just we see Webb earning the trust of Fitz a little bit by offering to hang out with Thick and like give Fitz a little bit of time to go do what he wants to do. It's kind of like it almost felt like someone volunteering to babysit the kids for a little bit so the parents can go and just like unwind. There's a lot of that, and I like that Hobb doesn't just skip this part. Yes, it's long. Yes, it is kind of tedious, kind of frustrating to read at times, but for me, it adds to the realness of the characters and like the eventual emotional catharsis that happens in these when these plots begin to thicken,
Yeah.
because it feels like we're on this journey with them, and it's a very
Yeah.
frustrating, and the
Yeah.
food sucks and the weather sucks and everyone's wet and everyone's cold and everyone's at each other's neck because they're all confined in these like tight spaces, and some tiny little quabble will break out over here, and eventually getting through that strengthens all these people's relationships together, uh, and then they get there, and everyone's happy to just get off the stinking boats, and obviously Thick's happy to get off the boat, and
Yeah. But like what
but they
Derry mentioned, like that was really cool. Like Webb showing him the other side of the wit. Oh, that feels really thematically meaningful about Fitz was only pushing people away before with it, where it can be used as a connective kind of magic as well. That's really awesome. And oh yeah, Thick was kept on hurting Fitz. That was felt hurtful to me that Thick was doing that and seemingly taking joy from it. But later on, we realized that it was Nettle that had been kind of prodding Thick to do that, and that Thick wasn't actually continuing to take joy in it. That he was starting to feel bad about it too. We just didn't know from Fitz's perspective. So like even that little thing during the ship journey that might have annoyed me a little bit, or became much more meaningful later on, and when Hob addressed it, just really great stuff.
And yeah, I mean, Claudia brings up a good point. We obviously know that Thick has some, um, you know, some kind of mental disability in some way, shape, or form. However, he's very, I don't know, cognizant about certain things. I don't think he understood the cogs that needed to turn to get to the eventual place they needed to get to. And so in his mind, he had just fixated like, I won't get on a boat. I won't get on a boat. I can't get on a boat. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, and he knew this whole time, um, that something had to happen. Thick has such a powerful skill that he knew, like, it's weird that we see the connections, like even the black, when he meets the black man, how he goes, hello grandpa. I'm not sure exactly what that meant, so I want to circle back to that at some point, but I
Yeah,
felt bad for Thick as well, because I grew to really love Thick. Like, he's funny, and
sweet
he adds
natured.
some comic,
Yeah,
yeah, very sweet natured. Simple things please him. I mean, like, in this world where there's so many things going on, and he's dragged into the politics just because of this connection that he has with the prince. Uh, he all he cares about is food and having a safe place to sleep and be warm. And um,
hey Jimmy, step by.
yes, what's going on, Jimmy? Glad you could stop by. Oh,
Awesome book indeed.
yes, my now favorite book of all time. But yeah, I think Thick was a very necessary part of the story, and getting through eventually when they get to the first, where they stop first at like the Boer clan, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
they don't go straight to Aslevial. So they stop there, and there's
They see the
some
Headgird meeting, right? The
yes, they
meeting
see
of
that
yeah.
we get to see some more politicking going on. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because it's almost like they brought a whole bunch of people. Um, I agree with this, Derry. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
Uh, so we get to see, well, they brought a whole bunch of people with them because they're going on this journey. Well, it wasn't a bunch. How many people was it? Was it like 12 people or something that
You mean like
they could
the
bring on the one?
the six duchy nobles
Oh yeah,
who
yeah.
are
The six. So we see, like,
who are
this is like a pit stop for a lot
yeah.
for like our main cast of characters, but it actually it did a lot for the world at large, because like when they planned to go on to Aslevial, like, didn't all the nobles kind of stayed behind, and they're like
Yeah, yeah, they're building their
they're
trade connections, yeah.
yeah, they're beginning to work out trade networks with these people, because they're really like, it seems like the six duchies, Kettrick and Dutiful, have gotten the six duchies really behind the idea of forming this relationship, mending this relationship with the Out Islands that
Yeah.
has not been in a good place. Um,
Yeah, and
I
it
really
was such an
enjoyed that.
interesting it was a very nuanced political discussion too, is like because there's so many different aspects to this quest of like going to kill a dragon. It's like, oh, this dragon's important in their culture and important to them historically. It's like they don't want people just going off and killing this dragon. And then they recognize though that like Dutiful was challenged and that it's his family's honor is at stake and his personal honor, and there's this big political alliance at stake too. So like it seems like everyone was actually open-minded to understanding that like, oh, maybe there needs to be some sort of compromise here, and we actually understand like where everyone's coming from, and let's make compromise. Some of you will come with us, and uh, you know to Icefire. And so it was a very interesting like political scene. It was a very uh, I felt like more nuanced politicking than when we often get uh, in these types of scenes. And Hobb just set up a very interesting situation where,
Yeah, well, this is
yeah,
also the beginnings, and this is kind of why I wanted to touch on this. This is the beginnings of the coterie being like, let's think about this for a minute, because Eliania is acting really strange. She doesn't seem
yeah,
enthused about this whole thing.
yeah.
She seems like not happy that this is going on, and so why would she? They're starting to put together like there's something else at play here. Like something is this is an insanely impossible task that she is like some greater force has to be behind this, or like we see all the teachings of Shade kind of coming out in this because they're all thinking like Shade would think, like there's got to be, this doesn't make sense, so we have to figure out why it doesn't make sense, because usually the thing that makes the most sense is the truth. And so they're
Although
all starting to
ironically,
realize
all except
that.
Chade. Ironically, like Chade was just the one who had these blinders on, who was like, "Oh, Dutiful said he would go kill the dragon, and it's like this is what we need to do to fulfill your promise and to make the political alliance." Like Chade was never, at least outwardly, like questioning the quest, and it got me so frustrated because like we, the reader, are put in the position of like obviously knowing that there's manipulation by the other white prophet that the fool's been hinting at, and like involved with Henja, uh, and whether she's the white prophet or just like a helper. So like we, the reader, know that like they're all being manipulated by this other nefarious force. So I get that like we have information that Chade doesn't, but still like it was frustrating that like Chade wasn't thinking through it at all. And I actually put in a comment on Discord about like how I'm so frustrated that Chade is just like not worried at all about like why Alania gave this killing the dragon quest. And then like later that chapter, they start talking it through and questioning, including Chade, being like, "Oh, let's be careful because yeah, you're right. This is fishy, uh, and we don't want to be manipulated here." So they eventually started all thinking about it more. Just
Yeah,
it
and I
took a
think,
little
like,
took a
I
little
mean,
while.
we obviously know Chade. We've seen the evidence of him aging, throughout the course of this series, which has kind of sucked. But it also, we were Chade has been thrust into this position where he's got much more authority and involvement in the public aspects of what's going on in Buckkeep than he ever did. And so I think, this part, I think one of the things I was thinking is, there was what 15, 16 years where Chade and Ketrican have been slowly trying to build towards
Mm,
really mending this relationship with the Out Islands. And Fitz was not a part of this. So he's not been a part of the long, grueling years to get to this point. And I think
yeah,
Chade is
yeah,
just this like, they've given us an
yeah,
opportunity. We have to kill
yeah.
it. We have to get a dragon's head. I don't care how we have to do it. We're getting the dragon's head. Like, that's all I care about. We've come this far. So there's a lot of that going on. But
Yeah, you're right though. You're
um,
right. That's so real. It's like that's why Hobbs characters are frustrating at times. Like they don't always do exactly what you want them to do, even if they are usually like fairly intelligent and wise with some things or competent. Like they're so real in having blind spots. Yeah.
yeah.
Wait, Matt.
And
Matt said something. I don't remember this moment because I read this book a couple weeks ago. So some of the little details like this have fled already. But like, what was this? What was this shoving? Oh wait,
this was part of one of
was
the
it when she was fighting the girl cousin who was kind of challenging
yes.
her?
Yeah.
Oh, she shoved
And
her face in the dirt at one point?
she just like won. This is I mean, this is an interesting part too, because we get a lot of I was kind of waiting to get to this, but when we get to the where like Dutiful and Eliane become betrothed at the mother house, this is like they left the father house and went to the mother house, I think, or something like that. But there's I think Fitz even makes, or somebody makes, a comment about how different their cultures are
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what is offensive and what is not offensive. And we get to see like the mother being annoyed that Aliania would leave the land. Like their culture is very interesting
Yeah.
because women have a ton of respect and power and are often, I mean, like
Yeah, yeah.
they talk about the women being the queens of the land or something, and like the men being like kings of the sea, and when the men die they go
Yeah.
back into, like, there's some very big cultural differences between the six
Yeah.
duchies, and that become
So, like,
apparent when
yeah, so,
the
like, the 6
cultures
duchies
meet.
people, like, Dutiful or Chade, like, probably think, like, "Oh, Ilania being queen to Dutiful and, like, being queen in the 6 duchies will be such a grand honor. It'll raise her station more than she ever could have had in the Out Islands," but they're starting to learn here that, like, leaving her homeland would be such a drastic kind of thing for her to do, and to give up her kind of inheritance in the Narchesca's line and with the land there and having her cousin or someone else taking it over, like that they don't understand before this what that would actually mean. They did think it would be this great honor that, of course, it'd be wonderful for Eliania to come to Buckkeep and be Dutiful's queen. So I love this part because Hub handled different cultures, I think, in a more real and nuanced way than most authors I've read, where, like, just lots of little things will be different in drastic ways, like the norms around um, just sex, like for the Out Islands culture, like how they view sex more casually and informal, like people can, at this party can take are taking all these soldiers to bed and it's not a big deal, like they don't have to be married, um
Not just
and
people, but
or
women
yeah,
have
yeah,
the choice to do
the
that,
women have
even
the
married
choice, like
women.
that, like it's showing that the cultural norms are just so different in this culture compared to those cultures, and that uh just that was a nice little illustration of that. And I think that's a very true to life, and just the way that she showed, like, these are extremely different cultures, and that people, when they're encountering like different cultures for the first time, I think have trouble just understanding that there are such huge differences in cultural norms, and that your way of doing things isn't necessarily better or superior, but it's almost natural for people to think that it's superior. And so they have to overcome those sort of ingrained biases towards their own cultural norms and come to learn about the beauty of other cultures and their norms and ways of doing things, and um, start to behave like the other culture, or at least understand it. So I think the way that Hub did that in this section was really cool, and that made this whole exploration of the Out Islands, even though we are slowly getting towards our eventual Aslafel. Oh God, I'm not getting
Something,
that name.
yeah.
And our quest, like, we know it's like that's just looming, and it was like, oh man, it's like I can't wait to get there. But like this part was so interesting too. And
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 this
Derry made
is
a comment, yeah, about
yeah, this
other
kind of
things we
plays into
learned along
that.
the journey. We
And
also She
this
said
was
we learned in the journey, like, about Dutiful interacting with Civil, about um, the balance between Dutiful and Shade. Like, yeah, there's all sorts of interesting character dynamics that get explored throughout this journey section.
and
I
this
love
was
this.
like this
Yeah.
I think this moment that Derry was talking about was when uh Fitz was kind of watching Dutiful and Eliania when they like snuck out, and then Piotr comes up and catches them, and they have this moment where, like, you know, it's kind of like an accepting of both types of cultures, because
Mhm.
in the Out Islands culture, the Narwhal clan's culture, Eliani has the right to make a decision who she wants to sleep with. And
Yeah.
she had, at this moment, like there was a moment where she decided she wanted to sleep with Dutiful. And Dutiful was just like, I appreciate that, but I made a promise to you. And although your women may be free to sleep with whoever they want, I am not, because I told you I was going to do something and I haven't done it yet. So I won't
Yeah.
do this until I do that. And that was a really cool moment where I think both of like, there was lots of moments where Dutiful became, and Fitz even made like blatant comments about it, more kingly and more reminiscent of how Verity would act. Um, and again, this is another just Hobb does this thing where she's so good at having characters take actions and make decisions that live up to their name. Like Dutiful has a duty. He agreed to do something. He's going to do it. Um, it's just cool. Like these names that in Farseer kind of sound like cheesy,
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
like when I sent you that prologue from the very first chapter of Farseer, I was like,
Yeah.
the naming makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
But
And Hobb hints like, ooh, there could be like an actual magical thing involved here where the
yes,
people are shaped a little bit by the naming and they're encouraged to kind of live up to their name. Um, but even if they're not like sort of magically encouraged, I think just having that name and carrying that around with them fully would almost ingrain it like that they're supposed to live up to it. But um, yeah, that was a great. The naming here is another amazing aspect to the whole series. But yeah, no, Darius' point about that both sides have to understand the cultural differences, and there's an overcoming of kind of cultural blindness of the other's culture on both sides. Like that's really cool, and that Piotr ends up starting to really respect Dutiful, and I think Eliane and Piotr both they end up really respecting him in a way that like because they spent time with him and they've seen evidence of his honor and his really kind of strong morals and ethics and like when Eliane's mom comes back, she's just like she doesn't know Dutiful and she's like just automatically really biased against Eliane going off with any
who's
like
this
6 months.
slave boy?
But that also it just makes sense because like it's taken a lot of time for Piotr and Eliane probably to come around to Dutiful, um, and shows you the magic of like oh and when people stop seeing each other as just like an other but actually spend time with each other in close quarters, like you break down those cultural barriers and um, but yeah that was a very nice thing there between all of these
There's a
characters.
lot.
So
So like most talented authors are able to get me to connect to characters when they humanize the characters to me. And then there's another level of it that Hobb goes to where she makes the characters humanize each other
mm,
in the book. It's like
yeah,
another
yeah.
layer deeper into the onion, and we get a ton of that in this book. And I guess a lot of that's going to come down to like, are you ready to like get into the next part where they finally
Yeah,
make it to
yeah.
Aslevial,
What
and
by the way,
who is
what
waiting?
hold on, what a beautiful I just gotta send props to you. Like what an amazing insight there. That was some deep stuff. I want to remember that she's having the characters humanize each other. Like often in books we through being inside the characters POVs, we we see like the humanization of characters by seeing their thoughts, but when actual like characters on the page can help to humanize each other and bring understanding even though they can't see inside each other's thoughts like we can as the reader, like that's great stuff. So yeah,
It's
this
amazing, and
yeah.
I think the first person aspect of it helps a lot with being able to do that. But like, I was amazed at how Hobb. I mean, she's done it throughout the course of this entire series so far, but this specific book, we get so many different aspects of that within probably like really the next part is when we start to really see like uh relationships kind of get bared down to what they really are, like what it comes down to. True emotions are shown, in this from here on out, because they get to
Yeah.
Aslivial, and there's a mysterious figure silhouetted against the horizon in extremely overdramatic fashion. It can only be one person, and it's of course the Fool waiting for them.
Oh, that was
I could like
wonderful.
I was literally laughing out loud. I was like, this dude, of course. Of course. And of course Fitz and Chade both thought they got one over on him. He's just like,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
You didn't think I was
yeah.
gonna come? I told you I was gonna come. I was gonna be here. You just made it harder.
Yep. Oh my god. We knew as the reader, like we just knew that the Fool was gonna find his way to the island. The fun for me was like figuring out how he was gonna do it or learning like I had guessed that he was gonna track down Paragon or maybe even that was my crazy guess that he was gonna track down like Althea and Brescian and Paragon, that he would get them to sail him, or that he would find Tintaglia, and Tintaglia would fly him over, knowing the importance of it for her. But like, just like not knowing when we were gonna see the Fool again. Hey, Anita, and for him to be waiting there for them, like, oh my god,
Hilarious. I
great
needed that
moment.
moment.
Yeah, Derry said, "Fool's being a drama queen." So true, so great. Yeah,
This is a
and
Wednesday
this,
morning.
yeah.
Sorry. I
Yeah.
know this is probably not peak viewing hours, but it's the hours that Ben and I have finally been able to work out.
Yeah.
Do you guys come here often?
Is
It
that what
was
he
it
said?
was
Oh, that's a great line.
it was perfect because like they finally were going to like the final destination, the final leg of their journey to like do what needed to be done. And then we get this amazing like comic relief almost moment where there's like it's like a pressure release valve was released. Like
Yeah.
this whole like and even with Fitz, I think it happened. In a way, like he was like, oh god, oh god, oh god, it's the Fool. But then he was like, it's the Fool. Like, of course he's here.
Yeah.
Because they get left in this weird it was kind of a result of Fitz, making dumb comments that ruined their relationship type of thing. And they've been in this weird, very tense kind of not being able to say exactly what they needed to say to each other type of thing for a while now. And then on top of all that, Fitz is like, I can't take him. We have to leave him. And then in my mind, the whole time, like, the Fool's gonna be so mad at you. And it's not like that. Like they just
Yeah, no, he understood. And especially because like it was out of concern for the Fool. So especially from Fitz's end. So I think the Fool was touched that, Fitz did that, if anything. Um I think Chade was doing it because he was worried that the Fool would interfere with the quest. So but
I do
in
too.
terms of in terms of Fitz, like he didn't if he thought he was gonna outsmart fate by leaving the Fool at home. It was yeah. Thanks, Derry. That was fun. I knew the Fool was
That was
gonna
a
get
great
there.
guess.
Yeah,
That
I
was
knew
a
the Fool
great
was
guess,
gonna
but
get there.
the truth of how he got there was
Oh
even
my
better,
god.
kind of.
I read that story like when he started telling Fitz, my jaw was just like dropped. I couldn't
Mhm.
believe that like he got run out of Buckkeep basically and just like found his way through the skill pillars to the grotto with the stone dragons and grotto is grotto a cave? That might not be the right word. The meadow, the clearing with the stone dragons or whatever it is
Oh, yeah.
in the west, and that he reanimated girl with a dragon and then flew with her over
Amazing.
like that. My god, I'm so much is like gonna make rereading the Farseer trilogy and like especially the end of Assassin's Quest. I was a bit lost with everything that was happening at the end of Assassin's Quest. Like it was such a whirlwind of like weird stuff that I didn't have full context for. But, like going back now and rereading Assassin's Quest in particular will be just like a completely new book for me in so many ways. But um, yeah, I like the Fool being there, and then just like Fitz also just feeling more comfortable with his relationship with the Fool at this point, not worrying about what other people will think, just like going to sleep in his tent and not worrying like what the gossip will be or what other people will say. It's like I loved that he's just like maturing a bit and just appreciating his close bond and friendship and companionship with the fool at this point. And uh yeah, it was like loved their dynamic here in this section.
Yeah, well, there was this unspoken thing too that was kind of going on. I think it was a reason for tension in their relationship before they left Buckkeep, where the fool knew he was going to his death. And there was that whole weird dynamic going on where the fool was acting like somebody that was aware that they were traveling to their death, and then Fitz couldn't act genuinely emotionally to the
Yeah.
fool because
Yeah.
in the Fitz's head he was like, God, he thinks he's going to his death, but he's not. I can't tell him. And so there was a weird like rift in their relationship that I think in when they got on the island, they both just accepted like these are probably the last few days we're going to have together. And so I think Fitz didn't want to, you know, they love each other, you know, in different ways, in many different ways.
Yeah.
But I think that um in terms of referencing Assassin's Quest, like you said, which again was I agree with Anitha, although it's not a popular opinion. Assassin's Quest was my favorite in Forest Year. I can't wait to reread this series someday.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
amount of things I'm going to pick up on, I think, are going to be fantastic to just experience. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Fool's Fate definitely makes Assassin's Quest hit differently.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to do it with my illustrates. I still have to pick up the third one actually, but like I love illustrated editions. I'm such a kid. I like the more illustrations the better for me
Oh
to
yeah,
appreciate, but like these really like reasonably priced editions. Wait, who is this? Who is that? I don't know who that is. This is from
I don't
Assassin's
either.
Apprentice, the beginning of Assassin's Apprentice. Who is that? Can anyone tell me who that is?
I don't
But
know.
man, I can't wait to reread these with the illustrated editions to accompany them.
Matt, I don't know if you were here earlier, but so quick aside, I said to my wife, I texted her, I think that's Verity too. I think Chaudy is right. But I was driving around listening to Fool's Fate while I was working, and I texted my wife. I got this idea, and I was like, because my wife's not a large reader, but I was like, would it be weird for me to ask for a Christmas gift for you to read a book for me? And she was like, no. And I was like, will you please read Assassin's Apprentice for me, like as a Christmas gift? Like, you don't have to get me anything. Like, just read this book because I just feel so emotionally
Mm.
attached to this series. It has affected me emotionally so much as a person that I just want to be able to share some part of that with
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
wife. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
No, that
I
makes
never
sense.
thought like it was possible for some author to make me this emotionally connected to a series. Um, so
Yeah,
I
no,
can't
that's the
like I
magic.
know
That's yeah. That's the
all this is
magic
gonna hit
of
differently.
reading. That's the magic of reading. Matt says it's Verity. By the way, little Fitz getting the pin
Oh,
from King Shrewd right there.
so good.
Oh my god. And that moment like comes back. Fitz like thinks about that in this series later, many years later. That that comes back again. Like, oh, there's gonna be so many things like that that have
We're
more
getting a
meaning,
little
like
off topic,
yeah.
I guess, but that
Yeah.
brings me to a point that we kind of missed this, but it was a really awesome moment where they were Fitz and Dutiful were in the keep still and the sword exchange.
Oh, what a nice
That was
moment.
such an awesome moment. Like
Oh,
incredible
yes.
moment. That was one of those moments that like, oh man, that was so cool. And Dutiful like was just like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I have something too. Like it
That
was
was so
so
nice of
cool.
Dutiful. It was so nice of Dutiful and thoughtful, and like seeing Dutiful's joy of getting something from Verity and and just like Fitz has to be a bit of a wet blanket. He's like, well, I can't really like use the sword because I'm supposed to be just a guardsman, but like we'll keep the swords for now, and then and we'll trade later maybe. But like, yeah, like that was a really wonderful moment between the two of them. Just such a great little moment that Hob thought of that was just had so much meaning.
Yeah, that's I have those illustrated editions too, and I had already read Farsi when I got them, but I went through and looked at all
Ah,
the pictures, and I was so happy just to see them and like see those moments.
yeah. I gotta get the Assassin's Quest one. But I hope they do
Matt,
that
I
for the
don't know if
other
my
books in the
wife's
series.
actually going to read it or not. It might take her 6 months to read it, but if she gives it a shot, I'll be happy. Um, so where did we diverge?
So we're at
From our path.
they're all together at the Aslaval camp. They're camped out. Not much is going on. They're trying to dig. They're
No, this is when stuff starts to get crazy though, because this is when the guilt of the I think the Narcheska and her people are really starting to come to a boil because um
see
bye Anita.
Anita.
Because now, like you were saying, they know each other. They're starting to feel a connection to each other, and so this is right before I think everything. Yeah, the Black Prophet starts
Oh,
sneaking around. The cake,
yeah.
the
Oh,
cake is
that's
when
such a
everything starts to like. I was like, it's a classic Hob lulling you for a
oh
while, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh no, this is
Well,
gonna
first
mess
there's a little
everything up.
the Black Prophet does provide a little dread to the situation. We don't know if this is like an evil character or sympathetic one or what's going on supernatural. And like the the Out Islander guys, their offering is not accepted, and they're like, this whole quest is doomed now. But
Oh
then
yeah, yeah,
Fitz
yeah.
like mistakenly leaves like the honey out, and that gets taken. So you're like, oh, like the black man accepted the Fitz's offering. It's like, oh, maybe this quest, or at least Fitz's purpose here, is approved of. Like that was interesting. It was just like this little mysterious thing going on a
It was
little
kind
bit.
of fun before he
Yeah.
was a real thing because it felt like a legend come to life
Yeah,
type of
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
Absolutely.
that moment where like
Yeah.
somebody saw someone standing outside and all the
Yeah.
camp gets crazy and like everyone's running out of their tents in the middle of the night. Um, but
Then wit lessons.
yeah, the wit lessons. So this is kind of where they really start to piece together. I think that there's some other hands at play behind this demand to bring a dragon's head to kill Icefire, and then
But
Fitz
you're right though,
loses his
there was
ability.
a little lulling. There was a little lulling of like,
Yeah,
oh, they're slowly like digging through the ice, not much is happening. And then all of a sudden, like, yeah, Fitz got poisoned essentially, and like thankfully gets people to not try the cake in time. Did Piotr know that was
yes.
poisoned? I don't. What was the deal
I
with that? Like, he
I
was
don't know
just
if he.
basically like doing that knowledge, knowing that that was at the behest of the White Prophet. I think. Yeah, I think so.
I,
I think so.
I don't know if he necessarily knew what he was doing, but he was doing something that I think he knew was not good because it was. I mean, this is where we start to learn that like she the fake
Oh yeah,
white prophet has been, she's got, excuse me, her hand has been pressuring the Narcheska's people for what, generations? I mean, she's been
yeah.
I don't remember exactly when it
Learning
came
that they're
out, but
there. Oh my god, how tragic was it when we learned that they're there, thinking that her mom and sister are just have been killed already, and they're
yep.
just there to recover the bodies. Like it's so sad, like that their purpose that they're there for. And then she takes off her shirt so that everyone can see like the dragon tattoos that
Yeah.
she had. But wait, but then how did those get healed? Did they get healed later on when Fitz got his
I don't
skill powers
exactly
back?
remember.
Man, I'm mixing all different things up. But Derry said Fitz melts down, Chade and Fool go head to head.
Yes. Yeah, because the fool was like, listen, guys, I don't care what any of you are doing. Icefire cannot die. Uh, it's reminiscent. The fool's attitude towards this is reminiscent to me about how the dragons were acting in live ship. He's like, you guys care about all this silly stuff and a connection between the Out Islands and the Six Duchies, and I care about bringing dragons back to the world. Like your stuff is just petty compared to what I am trying to do,
Yeah.
and
Isn't
the
Chade also
stakes are much higher.
like like isn't that going to be a bad thing for humans if dragons are arrogant, powerful creatures? Does he argue a bit with the Fool about that? And Fool's like, yeah, I don't really know what the effect's going to be exactly, and we're going to all have to figure out how to live with each other. But I just know that bringing back dragons is going to be what the world needs.
Yeah, well, the fool, I think it was the one that had the conversation about. It was a really cool like thing that I hadn't thought about, but that humans and dragons are forces that need to exist together so that one of them doesn't ruin the world, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they need
humans.
to learn humility from each other. Yeah. That's like
Yes, yeah,
it's a very interesting fantasy thing that she's doing in this world that like in our world, in the world, humans have no other animal or species that we're worried about that we have to, you know, humble ourselves to or fear usually, in terms of their strength or danger that they pose to us. But so like humans are just we run roughshod over the world in our arrogance. And here Hub is, I think, a really cool overarching theme. Maybe is her bringing in the dragon. So I'll be interested to see how that develops because I think we're going to get more of that in the future
oh
series.
yeah, definitely.
But that's been an interesting thing that we've been building toward. But Derry, yeah, sorry about I was getting mixed up on when the tattoo stuff because that required Fitz's wit power to heal, right? Not wit, the skill power to heal.
So I'm trying to look at Wikipedia for a second to see exactly how, because this is when everything starts to get revealed. They decide as the camp to like send who the two people like Hest and somebody to
Yeah,
go back to get to the beach to get more supplies,
yeah,
and it's been like days. They haven't come back, and so I think Chade is like, hey, you gotta go. You gotta go do this with the fool and with Thick. And Fitz is like, why do I have to take them? And Shade's like, it doesn't make sense to take anybody else. You have to take them. So they go, and then this was like one of the best moments
yeah,
in the book. Like again, a lulling is going on. just
yeah, totally,
just a
totally,
gross, like cold, wet, sloshy slug through some snow, and like Hob does these little things that make other things just seem so real too. Like the fact that they have to take these poles with them and like
yeah, yeah,
poke the ground in front of them because you can't trust even somebody
yeah,
that went on a path. Like you can't just follow their
yeah,
path. You have
yeah.
to check. So that
That
happens, and
set
then they
up
just
that set up the fall so well. It
yep,
set up the fall so well, and even little things like how Thick was like he was like more scared of the ice than everyone else and was really slow walking with Fitz. Like all of that was just so it felt so real how that quest with that group would actually go. But then yeah, I was lulled. I was not expecting that moment where they
not
fell
at all.
through. And that was just like an oh shit moment. Things are now an absolute crazy sprint to this dark finish where they're in this like ice cave situation. They're seeing prison cells. It's like alarm bells are going off all over the place. They find ice fire with like stuff driven into him, like that he's people are trying to kill him,
Yeah.
and it's like everything is dark and grim, and they see like forged people, and they come across like Eliania's family too, who were
Right.
forged, right? And like it could not be grimmer and darker. And then just in the like the foreboding of like, oh no, this is not good. And then it goes to one of the darkest places I have ever read in my many, many adult fantasy and sci-fi and litfic books, where there is a torture scene that was less about inflicting like physical pain on the fool, but like when we see the fool being like driven towards the stone dragon and being forged, and Fitz is there and can't do anything, and the fool just seems to be like worried about Fitz. Like, man, that was such an absurdly intense and dark scene for this series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
really
was
powerful. Really
one of the
powerful.
hardest things. I mean, and the amazing thing is that so much world building and backstory had to be built up for that scene to be impactful. Like we as the reader know what forging does to somebody. If you didn't, that scene would not feel
Yeah.
impactful, not
Yeah.
nearly as
Yeah.
impactful. But we saw the remnants of literally like people just like Fitz was just hired to go around and kill people that were forged before because they were not themselves, and them being alive and not themselves was worse than them just dying. Like being forged was worse than dying. And in order for like us to have that much of an impactful scene, like with the full, like I was like, please don't. The fool's like the last person, the last, not maybe not person, I don't know, the last character that this needs to happen to. And this late, like the pale woman knew that. She knew everything. She was like, I hated her so much in
Yeah.
this section.
Oh my god, so
Um,
brutal. But like, what a great villain character! Because the scene where she's having dinner with Fitz. Oh yeah, Derry was talking about the scene where they're walking through the ice caves. Yeah,
oh yeah.
that was a very dreadful like scene where filling me with dread. But when they have that dinner, man, like the pale woman was such an interesting villain character. Like she was so unnerving to me because like she is like just so vicious, but also like not just like psychopathic, but like from her perspective, she believes that she's the real white prophet, and that she's meant to fulfill her own prophecies and designs, and um like views the fool as this imposter,
Did she ever
and just
get
like,
you? Like, did she was she close to like making you doubt the fool ever?
oh, that's an interesting question. I don't, maybe a tiny bit at one point. I'm like, oh,
I
I
never
guess there's a
throughout this
chance
whole
that like,
series
yeah,
never doubted that
yeah,
the fool was the white prophet. And in that moment,
yeah. It's like, oh, what if the fool's prophecies were just like not the real ones? Like, yeah, like if there's only supposed to be one at a time, and if she is part of this race and is getting prophecies, like yeah, like who's to say? Like from the fool's perspective, if he's getting prophecies, he thinks they're true. If she's getting prophecies, she thinks they're true. It's like, yeah, it's like we've always just had the fool's perspective here before,
yeah,
so we naturally think that he was right. But you're right though. There was this like tiny bit of doubt because truly, like we don't know objectively at that point if one of them is the true one or not. But then
I
I
was
think
so
we do
mad
get a
at
hint.
her.
We do get a hint later because of the changing colors of like that when a prophet, when their like goal is reached, they turn like a darker color, and they
Yeah,
like they
like
go through this
when
whole changing.
their last vision happens.
And so the fact that like the Fool had already turned tawny, and then later on is turning darker, and and the Pale Woman is still just like white, bright white color. Like that's a sign that like she is the weird like imposter that hasn't had the real prophecies, or if she, or maybe she's misunderstood them, or just like she was evil at heart, or like that's why there was another prophet that came along. Who knows why she is what she
Yeah.
is, but I think the changings and the colorings of them indicate that like truly she was the false one.
I think so too, but I was mad at her for even creating an inkling of doubt in me
Yeah.
about the Fool. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I do not want to think of this way about the Fool. And I don't believe you, but damn it, you're making some good points.
Yeah, no, that Hob created a much more felt like nuanced, real feeling villain character than in the Farseer trilogy, which is definitely one of my personal biggest gripes with the Farseer trilogy was that Regal felt very caricature, like mustache twirly kind of villain. He didn't really ever come alive for me. I was never really convinced like that he was like truly this 3D character and that other people would do what he wanted them to do. But here, like Hob for me, and with Live Ship, I think leveled up in her like antagonist writing, making them 3D characters, and then just carried that through into Tawny Man with this villain behind the scenes who we then now see. It's like, and you've built it up so long for like the moment to come and for it not to disappoint, but to even go beyond my expectations. For like, what an amazing job with this Pale Woman character. So frightening,
Yeah,
so
truly.
chilling and frightening and interesting
Pun
though,
intended.
nonetheless. So yeah. So yeah, this was dark. I because of the title of the final trilogy though, and I don't think that's a spoiler because I think at this point, just if you're reading the series, like you're aware of what the sub series are and what their names are. But the knowing that that last trilogy is called the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, that is the name of it, right? The Fitz and the Fool trilogy,
Yes.
is that the name? Like I never felt like the Fool was going to die. Like I was worried that he was going to change maybe, and that he would survive in a changed state. And so like that him being partially forged there was very still worrisome for me. But I do think some of my own tension and drama or like emotions in Fitz thinking the Fool had died were sapped because I felt like I knew that the Fool was going to be revived or survive somehow and be part of that last series, the last trilogy. So like
Yeah.
I think I would have had a more intense emotional experience with this whole section if I just didn't know that series continued and didn't know the name of the last series. And because yeah, just knowing that
Yeah.
I do think hurt the intensity of this experience. But also thankfully it maybe did that because it was already so intense that like I didn't need to the added tension of thinking that the Fool had actually died. Like
Oh,
it was brutal enough maybe as it was. But like even just think like living with Fitz through him thinking the Fool had died was so brutal because you know how close
yes.
they are, and thinking that the Fool was gone and he was just on his own now. Like Night Eyes is dead, Fool is dead. Like man, Fitz here is going through such a brutal, rough time. But at the same time that he's dealing with that, someone else has come back to his life all of a sudden. And that was an amazing moment. It's like we have the sadness of thinking Fitz has lost the Fool, but then he escapes and Burrich is there, the heart of the pack, to bring him and to comfort him and keep him safe. Like that was definitely one of my favorite moments of this whole series so far, and definitely
It
of this
was,
book. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Hi Matt, first of all. Thanks for
Hey
stopping
Matt.
in.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think going back to real quick before we get to one of the best moments in the series, I think. Uh Even though I knew that the last trilogy was called Fitz and the Fool, I was so uncertain of what was going to happen with the Fool. Like I didn't I thought maybe like the Fool was gonna become like he was going to become the dominant personality in the Stone Dragon and like overtake Kebble
Yeah.
Rawbread or something. Like I didn't know. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know if the Fool was going to survive as the Fool.
Yeah.
Like obviously I knew he was going to survive in some way, but like I didn't know if he was going to completely become a Stone Dragon, if Fitz was going to like reanimate him, and like I didn't know. And then Hobb just like sells it. Although in the back of my mind, I never really truly, I think, believed, obviously, you know, that the Fool like died, but he did. And like we
Yeah,
felt
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we
Yeah, he
felt
did.
Fitz feeling that. And like it hurt so bad to feel Fitz going through that.
Yeah.
That like I think this is again part of the reason why this has just become my favorite book of all time. There are so many moments of just absolute emotional investment. Like
Yeah.
when I'm like, my heart cannot be ripped out any further. Please do not do this to me. Then we get Burridge coming back, and it's like, oh my god, how can you make me this devastated and then this happy? Like,
Yeah.
you know, 50 pages later. When this big lumbering silhouetted figure comes through the snow and like we get that moment where Hobbs like, you know, Fitz says that smell, like he talks about that smell being
Yeah.
familiar. Like it was
Yeah.
so good. It
Yeah.
was everything I wanted it to be.
Yes. Yes, yes, and it wasn't about, like, recriminations or blaming people for it was just like, "Come to me, like, I'm protecting you, like, that's my role." Burrich, just A plus father figure for Fitz. Yeah. Oh, what a great moment.
The heart of the
And
pack.
then and then he Fitz escaped. I'm having trouble with the actual details of this section. He escaped from the caves. How? I can't remember how he escaped. And
He
then
was let go.
oh,
He
he was just let
agreed.
go. Oh.
He agreed to kill the dragon, which is what the pale woman wanted.
Oh, okay.
So she was like,
Yeah.
if you agree to go and do this, I will not kill the Fool and he will not be completely forged and you can still have him or something. And so again,
Oh, okay.
it was like Fitz deciding to make this decision that benefited him primarily because most of the world I don't think cared as much about the Fool being
Yeah.
alive. But Fitz did. And she knew that. So like she got him to agree to through the torture go and kill Icefire, which is what she really wanted. So the guards like just walked him out and like threw him back out of the lair. And then
Okay.
he like wandered back to the camp, right?
Like, Hobb does so many interesting things here with even minor characters, like the guards, like, they're not just the random dark henchmen who are just evil, but they've been, like, partially forged, and when they come back to themselves, when the stone dragon dies, like, they're human and full again, and, like, they feel bad about what they did when they were forged. It's like, oh my god, there's a lot of dark, deep stuff going on in this section, but we shouldn't jump ahead too much. So like, Fitz comes back, and then it's all about the plan to blow up the dragon, right? And then they
essentially
like using the powder, and they're gonna do this big thing to blow it up. But how does it change? How does everyone's mind change to being
everyone's
like,
mind doesn't
let's
change. Fitz's mind
let's
changes. That's it.
I can't remember how it went from like we're blowing up the dragon to like I'm using this powder to free the dragon.
Fitz connected through the skill to the dragon and
Ah.
learned about the
Oh,
dragon.
yes. Okay, that amazing moment. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yet another spectacular moment where Fitz empathizes through basically seeing through the eyes of the other being, living their whole life from their perspective. Wow, yeah. Oh,
There was like
fantastic. Yeah.
tiny little tendrils of the skill that kept like diving deep
Yeah.
down, and Fitz couldn't get to them anymore, and
Yes.
then he's like
Yes.
screaming for Nettle to like help out because Nettle's really strong, and I think Thick comes in and he's trying to like scream to them through the skill like, we can't kill this dragon, like you need to help me, like let the dragon know that I'm not going to kill it, I'm trying to save
Yeah.
it, because he needs to tell Tintaglia that, or else Tintaglia is going to come here and kill all of us because she thinks we're killing the dragon.
Yeah.
Like there's all this stuff is going on, and then again, like in this, as soon as something amazing happens, there's this moment where Fitz is like, the fool was right, like I have to let him die. I can't kill this dragon. He was right all along. He knew it. He told me. This sucks, but I can't kill
Yeah.
this dragon now. Like there was that
Yeah.
whole moment.
Point
It was
for
just
fantasy, by the way. This is a moment that you couldn't have in realistic literary fiction, where like you all of a sudden live through the eyes of a long-lived dragon. Yeah, that point for fantasy right there, that scene. And then yeah, there he's going on into how this became insane because he asked Nettle to go into Icefire, and then and then she basically just vanishes into the dragon. And Fitz is like, "Oh my god, I just
oh yeah.
I just lost my daughter in the dragon." It's like worst father of the Millennium Award goes to me. And was it how did she get rescued? Was it Thick helping to
Thick.
go in?
Thick reformed her into the image that
Oh
he
my
had of her in
god.
his mind.
Yes. Can anything have been more beautiful than that? Like all of the three of them working together to accomplish this goal and saving each other at different
It was
moments.
amazing.
Yeah, like oh my god.
And
That
still at
couldn't
this
have yeah.
point,
Yeah.
Nettle doesn't know yet.
Yeah,
That
I think Fitz thought that Nettle knew that he was her father, because when he got the message that Nettle had gone to Buckkeep and said that her papa was going to kill the dragon, Fitz thought that that meant that Fitz was going. He didn't know that Burridge was on his way to go to the dragon as well. So yeah, Fitz doesn't know maybe that Nettle still doesn't know that. I don't remember exactly what he knew and when, but yeah, Nettle doesn't know that Fitz is her father at this point.
she knows how to get home from there. That was what a
Oh,
line. There was so
so
many
touching.
little,
Yeah.
I mean, the way that Thick just phrased things was
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. So touching. So touching.
So
And
yeah,
so
anyways,
and
they
so they're and so they free Icefire, right? And then at this moment where I'm like, hurrah, freaking Dragon Kebble Rawbread comes
uh,
out and it's like
unbelievable.
I was
Unbelievable.
not prepared for that, and that was like beyond the chaos of like my mind was overloaded at that point. I'm like, oh no, I thought this was about to be just a giant reunion between Tintaglia and Icefire, and instead we have this crazy stone dragon
I just picture
rampaging.
this stone dragon like clawing its way out of some like black hole, be like, not so fast. Um, just
Oh my
ruining every
god, yeah.
plan
And then freaking
terrifyingly.
Tintaglia flying out of the sky like an
Oh yeah.
arrow, dropping to save the day. But like, I don't. I had a hard time actually. Like, I don't think Hob did the best job helping me picture like the dragons and their relative sizes, at least initially in the scenes. Like I always I think have not known how to picture the stone dragons and like get a sense of their scale and size. I think she's done a better job, I think, describing the real dragons. So like I was confused by like everyone's relative strength and size, but like I thought Tintaglia was just gonna like knock Kebble Rawbread around, but then we learned that like, oh, this stone dragon's actually more powerful than Tintaglia and bigger and huge, and
Well,
Tintaglia actually can't just fight Kebble Rawbread dragon.
there's a
And so
moment
like
where
yeah.
they're still underneath where Fitz kind of mentions like how big the dragon is in the carving of the dragon is. But I think
I
you're
might
right. And
have
then
I might have just kind of missed that.
there's also that part though, I think, where the Hob tries to make it known that in terms of dragons, like as a species, that females are significantly smaller than males. just in general. Because like
Yeah.
Tentaglia's, she's been out and about for a while. She's been eating. She's a healthy dragon, but she's still just smaller than them. So then we get a sweet dragon battle that was like so intense.
Yeah.
My brain just pictures like Game of Thrones dragons. Like that's like the kind of the
Yeah.
size
Yeah.
of dragons that I'm picturing. I don't know if that's right or not, but she I think Hobb does a fantastic job describing these like dragon battle scenes where they're like
Yeah.
grabbing
Yeah.
each other's tails and biting each other's neck, and like the biting of the neck doesn't do anything to the stone
Yeah.
dragon, and
Yeah. Oh man,
so
no,
you're
it was
like no
intense.
no
Yeah. No, it was such a great like fighting action scene. So intense. Yeah, the
until
Kebble Raw bread is made of
this
stone, so
scene.
that balances the power. Yeah, so because I initially thought Tintaglia was just gonna like come and crush everyone, but like the fact that Tintaglia is like losing
Yeah.
and then freaking Kebble Raw bread is going after the she is Kebble Raw bread when Burrich does that, is that to defend Tintaglia? Like
No,
Tintaglia's on the ground and
it's to
then
defend Swift.
is Swift standing in front of Tintaglia though? Like why is Kebble Raw bread going after Swift?
Burrich was helping to heal Tintaglia,
Oh, okay, and then Swift
and
is there.
Swift was there
Yeah.
with him.
Okay,
And
so it
so
is to,
Burrich was
help
like
Tintaglia, yeah.
Burrich was I don't know. He was not paying attention to like what was going on up in the
Yeah.
air because he was just like doing his own thing with Tintaglia, and then Swift saw the stone dragon like coming because the pale woman was like screaming into the dragon's mind like finish Tintaglia. She didn't care at this point. She didn't care if he killed Icefire and Tintaglia. All she wanted was one of them dead so they couldn't reproduce. So when Icefire became like aerial and was proving to be a very difficult task for a stone dragon to kill, she was just like, go kill Tintaglia. I don't care. Just do it. And so he goes over to kill Tintaglia, and then Swift is like, not so fast. It's like a little
Oh my
10-year-old
god.
boy.
What a great moment for Swift and like made this little minor character just have such an important role in a climactic moment and then Burrich defending him and using his wit power to repel Kebble Rawbread, like getting flung
Unbelievable.
away. Like that was just a brutal moment, but like also a stand up and cheer kind of moment where Swift then uses his archery skills and fells Kebble Rawbread. Like, oh my god, what a crazy
With the arrow
and
that the fool
yeah,
gave him. Of
yeah,
course, the fool was
yeah.
involved again.
Oh my god, what an amazing climactic action scene. But then like I'm still worried at that point though that it doesn't all seem hunky dory. Like not only is Burrich injured, seemingly mortally, but like the pale woman's not around. So she could be up to no good. And like I'm very worried at that point. Like Tintaglia and Icefire start mating with each other and going off. It's like, okay, we fulfilled the prophecy. And so like
There's a lot of
some like
uncertainty at this point.
yeah, but like what's going on with the pale woman? That was I was dreading kind of what was happening. Like when she was still around, is she going to cause mischief? And like
Well, I think so. Like when
yeah,
the stone dragon came out, it kind of caused like a cave in, right? I think is
oh
what happened.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Fitz wasn't. I mean, Fitz just assumed everybody down there in the layer was just dead. I think.
Oh, but
But
then
there's
some
that
people came
whole
out because some people came out who had been kind of unforged. Like once the stone
yeah. I
dragon
think he
died.
just assumed like, well, the throne room I think was assumed to have just been destroyed. But there was like that. That was like a whole Elderlings like layer. There was a lot of places down there.
Oh,
But
and
yeah,
weren't like Dutiful didn't Dutiful go into battle too during the scene with the swords? And he was like fighting alongside Piotr and Eliania. They were fighting
yeah,
like
because
the forged soldiers.
I think the forged soldiers all started coming out. You're right, from like the crevice
Oh, because
in
wait, didn't Piotr and Eliana rescue the bodies? They rescued. Oh, they
yes,
did. They took out
yeah,
her mom and sister who were forged, and like Fitz Fitz was basically like not active during this battle because he was dealing with the forged sister of Eliania, who was like giving him a hard time, and like that was nuts because while all this is happening with dragons, it's like they're dealing. Fitz is trying to like not get killed by this crazy girl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
that was all like so much was happening there, and Beautiful's going to battle beside them to help Eliania, and and uh and then we discover, how do we discover that the Pale Woman's hands were gone? uh
Yeah,
yeah.
from I guess just shoving Cabal Rawbread into the dragon like fully.
Oh man, but that
Um,
yeah. And then like what, I can't remember though, after this whole scene, what happens with
so
everyone?
when
Like
the
everyone
when the
leaves, but Fitz went into like, no, I can't remember how Fitz got left. Fitz said he's staying back. He decides to stay, right?
well, it was kind of like a false happy ending because as soon as
Yeah.
Icefire died, everybody that was forged came
Couple
back to
Robert, yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So there's like this moment where like the Out Island people get a ton of their people back because they aren't forged anymore. Um, and so there's like the reunion of the people to the Out Islands, which strengthened their relationship again because the six duchies helped them get their people back that they didn't even assume they were going to get back. And
Yeah, yeah.
it was like a really big deal to get the bodies of the mother and sister because they have to be buried on the land that they were
Yeah.
to become part of the land again. So there was all that was going on, and then Fitz also wanted to get the fool's body. That's why he wanted to stay. He's like, I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
he's dead, but I can't. He hated to be cold. I can't let him
Oh,
be
okay,
here.
and then they go off. They agree to like, we'll come back in like 2 weeks and send a ship for you. And that's when
Yeah,
Fitz goes back into the caves and encounters the crazed Pale Woman without her hands. And he had wanted to take revenge, but then he decided not to, which was such an interesting choice. Because I was like, oh, just kill her. Like, you don't know what mischief she can get up to even without hands. It's like, don't you just want to take her off the board? But Fitz was like, no, like, I'm not feeling that this is right. Like, this doesn't feel right to me to just like kill her. She seems to, like, she's done with, like, her prophecy is now, her stuff's not coming true. She's crippled. Like, that was an interesting, really choice that I like in retrospect, that Fitz didn't just take revenge on her. And someone later, like, I think brings it up, or maybe he thinks of it that he should have just killed her, but just wasn't in the mood for like revenge or for more death or killing her. But so like she basically was trying to, I think, goad Fitz into killing her. And
that's why he
Fitz
didn't
made,
kill her.
yeah, yeah.
'Cause
That's a great point. Yeah, he didn't want to do something she wanted. Yeah, it's a great point. And then he grabs the fool, and you don't want to put the fool's body down on the ice. Ah, okay, that was all with the fool's body. Oh, that's so intense. Yeah. Oh my god. For Fitz, that whole stuff, that whole scene is just so brutal and intense. But then Hob gives us a little bit of hope, like when we see that like the fool is holding the rooster crown and it's like bloody. Like then I
yeah,
immediately got thinking like, oh, blood, wizard wood, like
yep.
that could absorb the fool. I'm like, okay, that I'm like, I have hope now for the fool. And like when the dragon, everyone got unforged, I'm like, oh, the fool could also be whole too at this point. So I'm
I
starting to
don't
see
know if
hope. Or
the
like,
fool
yeah,
knew what he was doing or not.
yeah, I don't know either. But it didn't seem like the fool, even later when Fitz found his consciousness in the crown, it seemed like the fool at that point just wanted to be let go and didn't want to be resuscitated. Interestingly, I don't know what was going on with that, but
Well,
Fitz
the
is
fool
just
was
like, yeah,
terrified because he didn't want to survive anymore because he wasn't sure what that meant. Like
yeah.
the
And then
plan, the plan was for him to die, so he didn't know if by surviving he would, because he knew Fitz was still the changer and Fitz was still alive, so he didn't want to survive like and mess things up by surviving because that wasn't what was supposed to happen. But Fitz is like, but
yeah,
I'm the
and yeah,
changer now. Like Fitz really like took on that role of changer in this book. He kept saying it.
And that was so great. Just Fitz finally embracing his role and more believing in the Fool, and all that stuff that he didn't really believe in before. But seeing him trust the Fool more and come into that role as the changer was really satisfying throughout this
Yeah.
one. But like when he builds the Fool's pyre and is gonna burn the body, like, oh my god, that's so heavy. That's so emotionally heavy. But then when he discovers that like people are in the crown and the Fool's in the crown, like, oh my god, amazing stuff. When we
That was a
realize like, oh,
trippy scene.
there's all these old bards in this crown and they don't want the Fool in there, like, so trippy, so fun and cool. And then Fitz goes into the Fool's body, right? And
Yeah.
and then the Fool goes into his body, and then they switch
Fitz
places.
like there's like an in-depth scene where like Fitz goes into the body of the Fool, and Hobb like just describes him like trying to get the gears going in a dead
Oh,
body
and he
again.
doesn't understand the body fully because the body's different. He feels like it's not like the same human body that he has. Yeah,
He
that
realizes
was
for the first time that the Fool is not really a human.
That was
And then
cool.
like
And then oh my god, yeah, Fitz is getting the gears turning in the body, like, oh my god, crazy and amazing stuff. And when he revives the Fool, and then the Fool goes over to the girl with the on the dragon and like
Yep.
kisses the girl on the dragon. I'm like, what is going on here? And then he does the same thing and he's like, you need your memories back. That was like a sequence that was blowing my mind just continually. Like it was just one mind-blowing moment after the next, just like jaw on the ground. Cannot believe
Yep.
what I am reading here. This is spectacular. And
yeah, the
then
Fool like passes out because he's like, please, like, get these, like, Fitz's memories. He's like, get these out of me.
oh my
Like,
god. Oh my god.
please get these out
It's
of me. I
too
can't
much for the
believe.
Fool. Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. And he
He's
gives
like,
them
it's
back
so
to
human.
Fitz.
He's like, oh, it's too human. So like the Fool, yeah. It's like he can't deal with Fitz's intense past experiences. Oh yeah, Derry says they become one entity. That's
Yep.
that they've already been so close and shared moments of connection, but yeah, now maybe going forward they might even feel even closer and connected.
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of like
and the Fool just like making Fitz whole again, you know? It's
yeah,
so like
yeah.
just he felt horrible doing it, but like
Yeah.
also felt like it was the right thing to do. And
Yeah.
from
Oh,
that
the Fool
moment on,
doing
everybody was like,
yeah.
dude, I don't know what it is, but you just seem happier. Like you just seem
Yeah. Yep.
full. You seem content, you know? And
Yeah, and that leads us into like the whole falling action sequence, which is just so beautiful. Like I was worried too that like about leaving the Pale Woman alive and that she was going to destroy the scrolls and stuff, and she tried to, but thankfully Hobb didn't make Fitz's decision like have that poor negative consequence where it's like, oh, she didn't actually get to burn all the documents. They were able to salvage most of that, even if they were very oily. And then it leads into, before we get to like Fitz back at Buckkeep, like there was the stuff where they're with the black man and the Fool's trying to just deal with like being alive on the other side of his prophecy that he wasn't expecting, and he's beyond his time, and he's all rattled by this, and he's trying to learn about himself through the other prophet. And it's like really cool that they get to share those moments. And Fitz is with Thick, and is this where they have the sledding that they do? I can't remember, but
because I mean, the Fool realizes that, like, you know, he's got a confidant in the black man because they're in the same place. Both of them have seen all that they were supposed to see, and the black man has been just on this island for years trying to figure out what the heck he's supposed to do next. He's known all along that the Pale Woman is an evil, like, false prophet, and he's just been kind of like working around her, I think.
And so Oh yeah, Pearl Cop and healing and not to travel the pillars so often. Yeah, he warns Fitz.
Yeah.
They're refusing to go on a boat. The mudslide. So this takes to one of the trippiest parts of this whole series, which is Fitz going through the pillars and going to some other realm for a while. And
Yeah.
some
A long time.
very powerful being like interacting with him. I have no clue what was
No
going
idea.
on.
No
But it was
idea.
fascinating. The being seemed to know Fitz, be like, okay, you got to go back there now. And
Yeah.
everyone else thought like Fitz was dead. and
I didn't
they're
realize
just,
how long he
yeah,
was
yeah,
gone
and
for.
they're just moving on with life, and yeah, and Fitz finds Thick though still there, and that was fun. And then they head back together, and they're back in Buckkeep, and I think the most emotions I felt, maybe in the theories, maybe in the Fitz books, was when Fitz got to meet Nettle in person. Like,
Yep. She was just
that
standing there.
meeting was so emotionally loaded for both characters, for us, the reader. It's like, and it didn't go great at first, but then Fitz is like, okay, let's do this again. Let's reset. And they do kind of have a really nice moment together. And Nettle's a little like disappointed that like it's not her Wolfman in the dreams is not like her knight in shining armor that she maybe thought. But
Yeah.
Fitz is just like so happy to be seeing Nettle in person. Like, oh, that was such a touching scene. And we get so much of that in this whole finale, because we have that reunion, we have Fitz reuniting with Burrich, we have Fitz reuniting with Lady Patience, and that whole thing
Yes.
that they had, it was so sweet and touching and fun. Like, there was so much of that leading all the way up to Fitz reuniting with Molly in a very at first like not close way, but eventually breaking down the barriers, leading to them being together again. Like, I tell you, like, I might be skipping ahead too much because I skipped past the Nettle stuff, but like, I was actually not hoping that they would get back together, because I thought Fitz was developing into a really great match for Kettrikin throughout this series, and I wanted like Fitz to just leave his like childhood love behind him. But like, the way that Fitz starts like worming his way into like this family and sending them gifts and helping them out with stuff, and like seeing Molly again and Molly being open to it eventually after some time has passed, like, was so sweet the way that they kind of reconnected.
Yeah.
It did feel right by the end, and it was just so nice that Fitz was able to recapture some of this joy and happiness now that he's his whole self again. And so yeah, what an amazing falling action section with all of these different character reunions. And yeah, it was
I
emotional
really
and yeah.
enjoyed the courting, the recording of Molly. I thought that was fun to read about. We didn't talk about this, but this really,
Yeah.
really hurt, because I think both of them knew it was the right thing. And, the fool again was just like, basically like, Fitz, I love you like more than anything, but I cannot in good faith come to Buckkeep with you, because I know I would be preventing you from doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how much of a difficult decision do you think that was for the fool to just like willingly choose to cut himself off from Fitz
Yeah, and
for
wasn't there some
selfless
really
reason?
interesting discussion of cause and effect the fool brought up, maybe, whereas like, yeah, it could be something little, but then I caused you to do something different that changes the whole course of fate. Like, he's now so worried that like, now that fate is on the track that he wanted to be on it, but he's not supposed to be here. He's worried that like he will have
I
negative
think it was
effects.
it was Prilkop that was
Oh,
explaining
it's
to
Bill Cop
Fitz.
that explained that? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Fitz was like, I'll be back," and the whole time the fool was sitting there like, "Dude, I don't want you to come back." And Prilkop eventually was like, "You can't, you can't." Like it was so cut and dry to him. He's like, "You can't have a relationship anymore." Like the fool has seen his last prophecy, and if he were there with you in Buckkeep, who knows where your attention would be diverted? Like because he was there, you might not talk to somebody you're supposed to talk to, and like that would change how that person's day went, and it could be the simplest little thing. But if he was there,
Yeah.
he would be like messing up with it.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
was
Yeah.
um
Oh, Derry, great point. Yeah, that they miss each other. They're so sweet. And great point here, Derry. So, yeah, Jinna's palm reading definitely. I thought that really could only apply to Molly, but I'm like, was that really a true reading of his palm? Like, is she just coming up with nonsense? But now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like if Fitz and Kettrikin got together, like that would create weirdness around like the purity between Kettrikin and Verity's love and bond, and like the involvement that Fitz had in conceiving Dutiful. Like I kind of like it that Kettrikin and Fitz's relationship is platonic, and like it keeps her and Verity's thing also separate and pure. Um, Even if like I have myself, I think a big crush on Kettrikin, and so I was like selfishly through wanting to live vicariously through Fitz, like wanting a little wish fulfillment of like Fitz getting together with Kettrikin because I have that crush. But yeah, no, this is probably the right thing for
well,
Fitz.
yeah, I think there's always that hope, and there's also the really weird dynamic that they basically have a child together, like they've been together in
Yeah,
that way. And I guess I don't know, this kind of one of the we're coming up on 2 hours here, so
yeah, yeah,
guess we'll kind of try to start to get to apply the brakes and get this thing kind of wrapped up. But one of the big things that I wanted to talk about, see how you felt, and I think we somehow missed this part, but it leads me nicely into what I wanted to talk about, which was the whole King Fitz moment,
oh,
where Fitz
yes,
finally like makes a decision, and it was Kettrikin again that urged him to make this decision. And I think one of the most interesting parts of this whole series so far that's become very apparent to me, and it's hard to see because we're reading in first person, but we see Kettrikin like refer to Fitz. I think Derry mentioned it earlier. Refer to Fitz as sacrifice. We see Chade and Verity in the past and Dutiful. Like all of these people look up to Fitz as like a legend of the Six Duchies, a living legend of the Six Duchies who has influenced this world so heavily. But we get this entire series through Fitz's perspective, so he never feels that way. And so I never really felt that way until the end of this, where
yeah,
I realized just how much Fitz has actually affected this world and the ruling of this world. And it was a really like cool moment. Like the King Fitz thing made me think like, wow, I've spent so much time in Fitz's like, self-deprecating first person perspective that
yeah,
I didn't even realize how much the
yeah.
people in this world look up to him and like
Or the
respect
effect he
him.
could have, or the place he could have in the society if he embraced his whole identity and his true self and took on more of that public responsibility. Like he's been, I think, really enjoying being Tom Badgerlock in the shadows, and has been not wanting his identity to come out into the fore. And that King Fitz moment, oh, so cathartic, and like also having Chade respect that and being like a
Yep.
little cheeky and being like, oh, you're finally coming out as you're as yourself here and asserting yourself. Like I'm liking this. Uh, that whole moment was just, I think, that a fantastic cathartic moment for Fitz's character arc through the series, and I think it would have been a nice place to end on. I do think I'm interested in seeing how everything plays out with the politics and the dragons. So I'm happy we have more. But I do think this would have been a very satisfying and suitable place for the series to end and arcs to end, and leave it a little mysterious where things go from here. But yeah, I'm
I
certainly
think
happy we get more though.
I am too, but this is like everything just felt it doesn't happen too often where like I close the cover of a book and think to myself, this was perfect. To
Yeah,
me. I mean, I'm sure other people might have their gripes again about the beginning kind of being dragging and slow, but like I literally remember like the moment I closed this book and just read like I am content. I was like, this was perfect. Like I
yeah.
like could not have pictured this book ending in any other way. I don't care that it was, the hero got his girl back and mended all the broken fences. Like, I don't even care. Like, it made me so happy to see that he, like, came back and tried so adamantly to just be the man that everybody thought he could be for so long.
Yeah. Oh,
Become a
so good. Yeah.
father, like, be a impactful part. It took Burrich to get him to do it, though. Again,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Burrich
Yeah.
made him
Yeah.
promise to go back. Like he
Yeah.
did it because
Is
of a
that
promise,
feeling of duty? Yeah. But it ended on such a beautiful note too. In his written reflections, he's talking about how I miss the fool, but in the same way that I miss Night Eyes, I know that such a one will not come again. I count myself fortunate for what I had of them. I do not think I will ever wit bond again, or know such a deep friendship as I had with the fool. As Birch once observed to Patience, one horse cannot wear two saddles. I have Molly, and she is enough for me, and more. I am content.
It's
What
perfect.
a great, perfect ending note.
It's literally perfect.
It is great. We feel
I
like we
guess
can live all these different lives and go on all these journeys that we just couldn't if we didn't have books, and we're just stuck to whatever we could see around us. Um, it's such a great journey she took us on with this.
Oh, and then Derry mentioned because when Fitz was in like wherever the heck he was, just the ether, the fool and Fitz missed each other at
Yeah,
Buckbeak.
yeah.
And I think it was Chade, right, that gave him
Oh
the
yeah,
gift.
yeah, yeah.
That freaking gift was so cool. The stone with like different faces on it where he could like touch the Night
Oh
Eyes
my
one, and it
god,
was like
so good,
a
so
memory of
good.
the fool, like just perfect.
Yeah. Oh, the perfect ones.
Um,
Yeah. Of course, the fool gave Fitz the truly, truly perfect parting gift. Yeah.
right. Well, we have this is Derry asked a question that we haven't really talked about uh, to each other, but how are you feeling? Do you want to hop right into Rain Wilds, or do you want to take like a month or two break, or how's
I don't
everybody in the
know.
chat feel?
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I've been
we don't have to decide right now,
yeah.
but I
I
haven't really thought about it either.
yeah, I'm kind of just in the realm of the elderlings mood. Like I've actually been having a tough time really getting engaged in Dance with Dragons recently. Like, and I don't know if that's just that book or if it's just like, oh man, I'm in the realm of the elderlings mood right now. But maybe soon, maybe whether it's the end of this month or next month, I think I will want to resume Realm of the Elderlings.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
know how you're
it's already
feeling.
the 11th of October, so maybe this is not definite, but maybe we can plan to resume in November with the first book of
Yeah.
Rain Wilds.
I do want to give the Wolful Prince the Wolful Princess and the Piebald Prince a read.
There was a guy who subscribes to me, you might know Anthony. He's in the Discord, but he just read it recently and loved it. But he hasn't read Tawny Man yet. He read it after live ship, but
Yeah.
before
I
Tawny
do
Man.
think that getting that like story, I think would be nice before the Tawny Man trilogy. Before Fool's Errand, like you'll have so much more context for that stuff. But No, yeah, I'm ready to get back in somewhat soon, I think. But we
Okay,
could maybe next month.
we'll play it by ear.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm excited to continue, but I'm also totally cool with just for like a week or two
Yeah.
relishing in
Sitting
this like
sitting with
just
this one. Yeah, yeah.
absolute. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if this being my favorite book of all time will hold up for a while because I know there's a ton of recency bias in that, but I just can't like I've never had a book hit me like this before.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
No, there's
um,
sometimes recency bias ends up being not what was going on, and it truly was amazing, and it stays with you and continues to feel impactful long after. So I say
I
lean
guess we'll
into the
ask
recency
the.
bias.
I'm leaning into it hard. I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
telling everyone this is my favorite
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
um, I guess we'll ask the classic question to first to you, Ben. Is there anything that we missed? And then to chat, is there anything that we just overlooked in this tiny book that we just finished?
Oh man, it's a chunker.
It's a
This is a
chunker.
chunker that did not feel like a chore to read. And now I am reading an even longer book that kind of just feels like, wow, this is taken like a long time for me to get through, but I was enraptured by this whole thing. So it was a chunker that didn't feel like one. Man, it
Yeah,
was so good. Fantastic. I had not a single complaint or gripe about this book, the plotting or the writing. I love finales too, and so this just the whole second half of this with the climactic sequence and the amazing falling action just so perfect. But like I said, you couldn't have this without the middle book, without Golden Fool, and
yeah,
without all the setup in Fool's Errand. Like the whole trilogy built on itself so well, and so many little tiny details with plot details and character details ended up coming around, being important in really interesting ways. Yeah,
yeah. I
just
agree.
masterful, masterful.
Unbelievable. Well,
Well,
seems like a good place to end it.
yeah, yeah.
I just want to take a brief moment to thank everybody that got on the chat on a Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. to make this again even more fun. I didn't honestly know if there was going to be anybody that was going to be watching besides Derry, who commented last night that she set her alarm. Uh, but thank you guys so much for coming again and making this just an awesome experience. Rogier, I'm not 100% sure. I think we're going to wait a little bit to start Rain Wild. So my guess would be that the next discussion will probably be towards the end of November, would be my guess. Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We might start Rain Wilds this month. We might wait till the beginning of November, but my guess would be that we probably will be discussing towards the end of November. So,
Oh man, this was
that
awesome.
being said,
I was really feeding off your just like absolute unreserved enthusiasm for this book, and that was I loved it too. And so just getting to gush about it with you and hearing your perspective was great. Thank you. This has been a joy this morning.
yes, it is. It is always a joy. I'm really glad. Good
Oh, let's go
night,
to bed there.
Derry.
Yeah, have a nice restful sleep.
Get some sleep. As always, thanks for hopping on. These chats make it the series just in general much more enjoyable. So I definitely want to coming on, Ben, and I guess we'll be hopping over to your channel next, and hopefully our 6 for 6 streak will continue.
Indeed,
At
indeed.
least enjoying Rain Wild.
Did you say Hobbin? Did you say Hobbin over to my channel?
I did. Amazing.
Love it. Love it.
All right, guys. Thank you again so much, everybody that was here, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.